how a veteran cable news anchor got a fresh start after 10 years on the air. We'll be talking with Chris Jansing. I'm Chris Ahrens, and this is Mediabistro. Chris Jansing, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You joined MSNBC in 1998.
If you say so.
13 years.
Yes.
Cable news anchoring can be a revolving door. How have you survived?
I keep my head low and I work hard. That's what I've done my whole life. Seriously, I think that I love news, and it's a grind, and it's hard. I get up every morning at 4 o'clock. I can honestly say that I sometimes was afraid that I would hit that day very early in this career where the alarm would go off at 4 o'clock and I'd want to rip it out of the wall, throw it against, and put my head under the covers and not come out again. In fact, I get out of bed and say, I can't wait to see what's going on today.
That's great. And you joined MSNBC from WNYT, where you were a local anchor.
Small market for many years.
And you were sort of discovered there. You were the main anchor at that station,
right.
And the president of NBC News, his wife, had seen you. They were vacationing there, and you were sort of discovered. What happened next?
Well, I actually got a phone call, and it was from the assistant to Andy Lack, who at the time was the president of NBC News, and said, he saw you on TV, he's interested in talking to you about a job, and I thought it was a joke. And I think I waited a day or two, and I called my agent, and I said, I got a call from this person. And he said, that's actually Andy Lack's assistant, and you need to let me call him. I can't even really describe what it's like after being in one place, as I was for 17 years, and then going to the big leagues, NBC, #1, and all of a sudden, boom, there I was, not only in the middle of NBC News, but in the middle of this new sort of idea of how cable was going to be operated. So it was amazing.
What were those first years like at MSNBC?
Terrifying. I think every day was a learning process. When you're in local news, you know what's going on in the world, but not in the depth. You're really worried about what's the city council doing, what are the local mayors doing, and so all of a sudden you had to know what was going on in far-flung parts of the world that honestly I never really paid that much attention to. You start to think about how many people are watching you, and it's a little overwhelming, and so you just find that all you can do is just keep working. You don't want to have that day where a guest on your show says something and you have no idea what they're talking about, that deer in the headlights look. It was like learning a whole new profession in a way.
And I should say, as a point of full disclosure, Chris and I worked together for many years when I was at MSNBC.
And what time did we get in the morning?
Too early,
yeah.
4-ish, right?
Yeah.
I think some days you were probably in before me. But in 2008, you left MSNBC and you went to the West Coast for NBC News. You were a correspondent.
Yes. Well, I
in the
never
bureau.
really left MSNBC because they always brought me back to anchor big stories.
Yeah.
And, for example, I worked on election night in 2008. But I think there is a point where you need to sort of shake it off and freshen up. And it had been a long time since I'd been a reporter because I was the main anchor in local news for 11 years. It was like being reborn for me. I remembered all of a sudden what my roots were, how much I loved being out as a reporter. And it was really great for me to sort of get back to my roots about what being sort of a scrappy journalist is.
So that was a refresher for you. Do you feel like if you hadn't have gone, you would have gone somewhere else? You would have done something differently?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I've thought about it. I do think I'm a much better anchor because of the time I spent as a reporter. I think I'm much more empathetic to the people out in the field. But I do think I probably would be a lot more tired, a lot less excited about going to work every day, and I don't think that my skills would be as good.
And now you're, as you say, you're reporting more for NBC Nightly News and for Dateline. And now NBC has this new primetime news magazine coming up, Rock Center with Brian Williams. So there's some exciting things happening with news at the network.
I think it's amazing all the things that we have out there, and what's unique about NBC News and what's so great for me as somebody who loves news is that you have all these opportunities on all these different platforms. If I do a story and I love it for Nightly, I can write a blog about it. They'll post it on the front of MSNBC.com. Those are all different audiences, as you know. The people who watch nightly news are not necessarily the people who watch MSNBC during the day, or the people who watch Dateline, or the people who go to MSNBC.com. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. The MSNBC of 2011 is not the MSNBC of 1998, and I want to ask you a little bit about that in our next segment.
Okay.